Ramashreshnam manumapi sachiputram atraswarupam rupam tasyagrajam urupurim maturim gaustavitim Radha kundam girivaram aho radhika madhavasam prapto yasya pratita kripaya shri gurum tam natosmi Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govindadev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Coming to you from a sunny morning, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat, West London. Glad to have you with us. We're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is entitled The External Reasons for Lord Chaitanya's Appearance. With this particular descent of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, we have two reasons, an external, exterior reason, and an interior, confidential reason, a deeper purpose. One reason is more common than the other. The external reason is more common. The external reason is known as the Yuga Avatar purpose, where Mahaprabhu's function is to spread the best method for spiritual realization, the best method of that particular era, that epoch. This current epoch is known as Kali Yuga. A yuga is an epoch or an era. So the era of Kali. Each era in the Vedic time scheme, which has 4 eras, Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. So each one of these epochs has a particular method of spiritual practice that is very unique, that is exclusive to that epoch. So in Satya Yuga, it is dhyan, meditation. In the next epoch, which is known as Treta, it is fire worship, or vice versa. Dwapara, maybe Dwapara is deity worship or fire worship, I forget. But let's just say Dwapara is Archa Vigraha, which means deity worship. And Kali Yuga is Harinam Sankirtan. Kirtan means to glorify the Lord. Sankirtan means to glorify the Lord in a group setting, congregational chanting. And Harinam means the names of God. So Harinam Sankirtan means to chant and sing the names of God in a group of people. And that is considered the Yuga Dharma, or the method, right? The most effective practice for spiritual realization at this given time, in this given age. So the Yuga Dharma function of the Yuga Dharma is initiated and propagated by a descent of Bhagavan every yuga. And in this regard, in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, Garga Muni is looking at Lord Krishna, baby Krishna. Garga Muni is the family guru of Nanda Maharaj, the Kula Guru. So he's looking at baby Krishna and he's saying, oh, this is God divine. This is Bhagavan appearing. Just like Nilamba Chakravarti looked at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and said, this boy is divine. He has all the divine symbols. So Garga Muni is looking at baby Krishna and saying, this boy is divine. And he quotes the sloka. In Satya Yuga he appears in a red form. In Dwapara Yuga Satya Yuga in a white form, Dwapara Yuga in a red form. Treta Yuga in a red form, Dwapara Yuga in a dark form, and in Kali Yuga in a golden form. So every yuga there is a descent of the divine in order to establish the practice that is pertinent to that age. Meditation in Satya Yuga, Jagya, fire worship in Treta, Archa Vigraha, deity worship in Dwapara Yuga, and Harinam Sankirtan, group chanting of the Lord's holy names in Kali Yuga. So that happens every yuga cycle. Every yuga there is a particular form of the Lord, as mentioned, generally of a different color: white, red, dark, blue, black, and golden. And so that function of Mahaprabhu happens every yuga, Gaura Narayan. And that identity of Mahaprabhu is known as Gaura Narayan. But he does not taste the inner Mahabhav, the inner mood and feelings of Srimati Radharani are not tapped at that time. They're not cultivated. It is simply the external function of the distribution of the holy name and the establishment of the Harinam Sankirtan, the group chanting of the holy name, as the practice for the age. So that's common. But the confidential reasons, which will be described in chapter 4, that only happens once every 1,000 yuga cycles. So for every 1,000 descents of the yuga avatar, there is one descent of Swayam Bhagavan, Krishna. That happens in Dwapara Yuga, and that same yuga cycle, in the Kali Yuga of that same yuga cycle, Mahaprabhu appears as Radha Krishna combined to taste the ecstasy, or to taste the three items, as we know: the love of Srimati Radharani, her happiness, and his own beauty, those three. In other words, to taste what Srimati Radharani is tasting, and to distribute that along with the chanting of the holy name. So there's a very special function. So that's the confidential or the interior purpose. But this chapter, chapter 3, deals with the external reason. There's no chapter title given at the beginning of these chapters. Maybe there is in the later editions. This edition of volumes that we're reading from is the original, or one of the original. If we look at the publishing date, 1974. So this is the 1974 edition. It is one of the first, if not the first. There was a marathon done at the Los Angeles, the ISKCON Los Angeles Temple. As it says here, the place of publishing, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Watsika Avenue, Los Angeles. So this is where this was published from. The first year of publishing, I'm not sure. It was the early 70s. I have a feeling there was an earlier volume than this, 72 or 73, but I might be mistaken. Maybe this is 1974 as the first edition. Either way, it's one of the first print runs of this book. They don't have the titles at the beginning of each chapter, so we'll look in the contents. And it says, it's titled The Causes for the Descent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I've seen in other places say the external reasons. And chapter 4, the confidential reasons for the appearance of Lord Chaitanya. Okay, so it's titled here, The Causes for the Descent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we'll resume from text 20. Apani karimu bhakta bhava angikari, apani achari bhakti sikkaimu sabari. I shall accept the role of a devotee and I shall teach devotional service by practicing it myself. So the Mahaprabhu here is describing, Kaviraj Goswami is quoting, this is actually is a quote from, he is saying these are the thoughts, these are the expressions of Krishna. But this is actually talking about the inner purpose. So we'll backtrack a little bit for context. He's saying, quoting Krishna, the Lord Krishna enjoys his transcendental pastimes as long as he wishes, and then he disappears. After disappearing, however, he thinks thus. This is in the special 28th Yuga cycle of Vaivashvata Manu. So once in every 1,000 Yuga cycles, once in every day of Brahma. So the descent of Swayam Bhagavan. So Krishna appears in Dwapara Yuga, and then he's thinking, for a long time I have not bestowed unalloyed devotional service to myself upon the inhabitants of the world. Without such loving attachment, the existence in the material world is useless. Prema Bhakti. It says, Chira Kala Nahi Kari Prema Bhakti Dana. I have not given Prema Bhakti. And everywhere in the world, people worship me according to scriptural injunctions. Sakala Jagati Mora Kari Vidhi Bhakti. But simply by following such regulative principles, one cannot attain the loving sentiments of the devotees in Brajabhumi. Vidhi Bhakti Brajabhava Paite Nahi Shakti. So simply by following the rules and regulations, bhakti based on the guidance of the Vedas, it does not produce prema bhakti. Brajabhav. Yes. Aishwarya Ganiti Sabha Jagat Mishrita Aishwarya Sitila Premi Nahi Mora Prita. Knowing my opulences, the whole world looks upon me with awe and veneration. But devotion made feeble by such reverence does not attract me. So he's obviously describing two categories of devotion. One which is connected to Vaidhi Bhakti, and the other which is connected to what's known as Raga Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti, the word Vaidhi or Vidhi is derived from the word Veda. So it's bhakti that is done in accordance or done under the done according to the guidance of the Vedas, according to the rules and regulations that are given in the Vedas. That's Vaidhi Bhakti. Bhakti based on Vedic instruction. Whereas Raga Bhakti is not constrained by the rules and regulations of the Vedas. Raga means of the heart, based on feeling, based on the sentiment of the devotee. And Vaidhi Bhakti is necessary when there is Aishwarya, when the grandeur and opulence of Bhagavan is the predominant theme in the relationship between the devotee and the Lord. When it's based on Aishwarya, which is the predominant atmosphere of Vaikuntha, then Raga Bhakti does not flourish there. Vaidhi Bhakti flourishes instead. But when the Aishwarya is removed, then Raga Bhakti can flourish. And Vaidhi Bhakti must necessarily fade away. There is no room for Vaidhi Bhakti in the atmosphere of Vrindavan, where there is no grandeur, there's no Vaibhav, there's no glory, Aishwarya. These Vaibhav and Aishwarya, grandeur and glory and power and omniscience, all of these qualities disappear in Vrindavan to make way for Raga Bhakti and Madhura Ras. So the two are mutually exclusive. They cannot live with one another. Vaidhi Bhakti does not live with Raga Bhakti and vice versa. There can be a kind of a blend, but pure Raga Bhakti must be devoid of Vaidhi Bhakti, because Vaidhi Bhakti gets in the way of the expression of the heart. And vice versa, the expression of the heart, you could say, it overrules Vaidhi Bhakti. So for Vaidhi Bhakti to be practiced, to flourish, there must be an absence of Raga Bhakti. So then we can understand that Aishwarya and Vaibhav, glory and power of Narayan in Vaikuntha, that must disappear for the Madhura Rasa of Vrindavan to flourish. And vice versa, the Madhura Rasa of Vrindavan cannot exist in Vaikuntha, where there is grandeur and glory. So the two are mutually exclusive. So Kaviraj Goswami is saying, Krishna says that knowing my opulence, the whole world looks upon me with awe and veneration. They worship me as the most powerful and the most, the all-knowing, the most intelligent. But devotion is made feeble. He's saying this is not the highest devotion. Such reverence does not attract me. Aishwarya Jnane Vidhi Bhajan Karya Vaikuntake Yaya Chatur Vidha Mukti Pana. By performing such regulated devotional service in awe and veneration, one may go to Vaikuntha and attain the four kinds of liberation. And then the four kinds of liberation are mentioned: Sharshti, Sarupya, Samipya, and Salokya. And the fifth kind, which is what is it called? I forget. Huh? No. Sayujya. Sayujya is impersonal. It's not mentioned here. So, these are the types of liberation that are achieved through Vaidhi Bhakti. And these types of liberation, these categories, they characterize the various types of circumstance that a devotee will achieve with perfection of Vaidhi Bhakti. So Rupya is the same form, same or very similar form to the Lord. Samipya is living in the same locality as the Lord, maybe as a neighbor in the same neighborhood. Salokya, living on the same planet. And Sarupya, same form, Samipya, Salokya, and Sharshti having the same powers and opulences as the Lord. So in other words, the common denominator here is being in the atmosphere and sharing the being absorbed in the energy, in the spiritual energy of the Lord, the same form, the same locality, the same opulences, etc. Sharing one's traits with the Lord. So Krishna continues, Yuga Dharma Pravataimu Nama Sankirtan Charibhava Bhakti Diya Nachamu Bhuvan. I shall personally inaugurate the religion of the age, Nam Sankirtan, the congregational chanting of the holy name. I shall make the world dance in ecstasy, realizing the four mellows of devotional service. Apani karimu bhakta bhava angikari apani achari bhakti sikhaimu sabari. I shall accept the role of a devotee and I shall teach devotional service by practicing it myself. So he's saying these are Krishna's thoughts at the end of Dwapara Yuga, when Krishna has appeared as Swayam Bhagavan and disappeared. He's saying, I have tasted, I have enjoyed his transcendental pastimes. He says Krishna enjoys his transcendental pastimes as long as he wishes, but after disappearing he thinks thus. He thinks thus that he has not bestowed pure devotional service, prema bhakti. And thus this line of thinking leads to the descent of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. I will accept the role of devotee and I shall teach devotional service by practicing it myself. Unless one practices devotional service himself, he cannot teach it to others. This conclusion is indeed confirmed throughout the Gita and the Bhagavatam. Whenever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharat, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. So the verse quoted here, of course, is Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam Srijamyaham. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself appear, millennium after millennium. Okay, so we'll begin reading the Bengali again. The Sanskrit for this one. Text 23. We'll start from text, where were we? We'll start from text 20, that's where we left off from yesterday. Apani karimu bhakta bhava angikari, apani achari bhakti sikaimu sabari. I shall accept the role of a devotee and I shall teach devotional service by practicing it myself. Apanina kaili dharma shikanaya nayaya eta siddhanta gita bhagavati gaya. Unless one practices devotional service himself, he cannot teach it to others. This conclusion is indeed confirmed throughout the Gita and Bhagavatam. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharat, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. It's not strictly, it says Sambhavami yuge yuge. It means I appear in every yuga. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada, in his translation, he takes a little bit of, you could say, translator's license. Sometimes he translates in a way that I think he feels is more understandable to his audience at the time. So mainly the young ISKCON devotees at the time. But it's not always literally a strictly correct literal translation. It may have been changed, it may have been edited. I've seen differences in the versions because I do a lot of referencing or looking at the Veda-based versions of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and many of the verses here in the 1974 edition are different to what you'll find. The translations are different to what you'll find at the on the indexed Veda-based version, the indexed database, Veda-based database. It's a big controversy, isn't it? In some senses, in ISKCON. The changing of the various verses in the books. Sorry? Some of it is okay. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. But there is one verse that was, the famous verse, Shimha Rasi Shimha Lagna Ucha Grahagan. It's talking about the astrological configurations at the time of Mahaprabhu's birth. Shimha Rasi means the ascendant. No, Shimha Rasi means the moon was in Leo. Shimha means Leo, sign of Leo. Leo lion, Shimha lion, right? So Narasimha. So Shimha Rasi means the moon sign. So the moon was in Leo. Shimha Lagna. Lagna means the rising sign. The zodiac sign that was on the horizon at the time and place, which was Navadvip, lunar eclipse, Navadvip, Feb 27, 1486. Was also Leo, Shimha Lagna. So the moon was in Leo, the rising sign was Leo, Shimha Rasi, Shimha Lagna, Ucha Grahagan. All the planets were in a very exalted position. Shadvarga, Ashtavarga, Sarva Sulakshan. Shadvarga, these are different astrological factors. Shadvarga means the six. Shadvarga is a collection of 6 charts. 6, the main chart and the subcharts. And Ashtavarga is a way of determining the strength of various factors, the planets, etc. Shadvarga, Ashtavarga, Sarva Sulakshana. They were all sublime. Sarva Sulakshana. But because this contains technical astrological information, Srila Prabhupada wasn't familiar with that. So the translation is a bit kind of, it's not correct. It's kind of, he wasn't familiar with Jyotish and astrology. So he kind of just translated it almost like out of context. It wasn't translated properly. So you look in this version, and if you know what this means as an astrologer, you'll go, oh, this is not quite a correct translation. But it's been corrected in the later versions. So you look at it on Veda base, and there's a proper translation. It's been edited. So some of it is good. It's important. But I can't comment for all of it. It's a hot button topic, is it not? Text 24. Utsidayor ime loka na kuryam karma ched aham sankarasya chakartasyam upahanyam ima prajaha. If I did not show the proper principles of religion, all these worlds would fall into ruin, and I would be the cause of unwanted population and would spoil all these living beings. Yad yad acharati shreshtas tad tad ivetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. Whatever actions a great man performs, common people follow, and whatever standards he sets by his exemplary acts, the whole world pursues. And that's another famous sloka. These are all very well-known slokas from the Gita that Kaviraj Goswami is quoting here. The one about Vana Shankara, right? Shankarasya, unwanted population. And yad yad acharati shreshtas tattad evitarojana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. This is a famous one, of course. People, common people, the masses of people, they follow the celebrities. Whatever actions a great man performs. The verse doesn't mean that the person is actually great in terms, well, there's different measures. How do you determine great? It depends on your value system, whether a person is great or not. If you're chasing money, then a very rich person is going to be great. If you're chasing power, then a powerful person will be considered great. If you're chasing beauty, then a beautiful person, you will consider that great. If you're chasing spiritual life, then none of those people will be considered great. So what you identify as great depends on your own subjective value system. But generally society shares similar values. So from a spiritual perspective, this sloka does not mean that these people are great spiritually. It means simply that they're considered great in society. So whatever a person who is considered great in society, whatever standards they set, whatever they do, people imitate. And this verse does not just apply to some time gone by, some time in history. It's very relevant today. And it will be relevant going into the future as well. I remember this verse came to mind once when I saw the explosion of tattoos amongst men in the United Kingdom. And it happened after David Beckham started tattooing his arms. You know this footballer, David Beckham? You've heard of him? Oh, maybe. No? He was very famous. He still is. Everyone knows him in the United Kingdom. And around the world, I guess. He was a famous English footballer. Still is. And married a pop singer. So he became one of the country's most well-recognized celebrities. And kind of a working class, right? Football is a working class game, every man's game. So when he started tattooing himself and wearing certain clothes, then an explosion of such practices happened amongst the English working classes. Beckham would tattoo his left arm, and suddenly you've got like every second, carpenter in the UK has got a tattooed left arm. I thought, what's going on? Then I realized, oh yeah, he's setting the standards here. He's considered successful, right? He's got a lot of money. He's famous. He's got a pretty wife, or by some people's standards. By most of the society standards, he's very successful. They aspire to. They see him as a great man. So they're copying him. He sets a certain standard and they assume that standard as well. Very powerful, this phenomenon. Very powerful socially. Powerful social phenomenon. And most people do it without thinking. Kind of sheep-like, in a sense. You see sheep, how they behave. One sheep gets spooked and starts to run, and the whole flock of sheep will begin to run in that direction as well, without assessing whether it's a justified course of action, whether we actually need to do this. Is it going to produce a good result? They just do it without thinking. So it's similar to this. The society, they see someone that they adore, they see someone who they identify as great, and they imitate that behavior without even assessing whether it's beneficial in the long term for them. They simply act in a sheep-like fashion and follow. So the verse is not describing necessarily anything bad or necessarily anything good. It's just describing a phenomenon that masses of people follow standards set by persons that those mass of people identify as great or successful. They will automatically follow it, and generally without thinking. But it can also happen in a good way too. And in this sense, when Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, when he surrendered to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur in 1926, he first met the devotees of the Gaudiya Math in 1924. He met Saraswati Thakur in 24. But he was visiting the temple. Perhaps he was finishing his education, as he was studying law. Or perhaps he was working or something. But either way, he was visiting, and he was, testing. He said he spent 6 years searching for a guru. And on his 7th year of searching, he met Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But he was not a man of whimsicality, not of fickle nature. If he was to do something, he would do it properly, consistently. So he was not going to align himself with any group, just on a whimsical, superficial basis. So for 2 years he visited and was part of the Gaudiya Math, but you could say did not join up fully. He was actually married. And he wanted to join, but he couldn't really join as a monk because he was married. At that time, the Gaudiya Math, the Gaudiya Math was, not just at that time, but throughout its existence, the Gaudiya Math was a monastic organization. So to fully be part of it, you had to be a single man living in the temple. There was no really so much of a society with children and all of this. It was very focused on sannyasis and brahmacharis, preaching organization. But he was married, and he thought, my obstacle is my wife. He has his wife and his mother. They were his two. So his mother passed away, and there's only his wife left. And very quickly, when he had this desire to join, she passed away. And all his anchors preventing him from fully committing to the Math, they were gone. So he joined 1926. And when he came and he joined, fell at the feet of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur to surrender his life. Saraswati Thakur quoted this verse, Yad yad acharati shrestas, tad tad ivetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute, lokas tad anuvartate. And I was saying, when a great man comes, this is an auspicious sign, so he's using it in the verse in a very positive sense as well. Saying that whatever great men do, what the standards they set, what they get into, then masses of people will follow. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, socially speaking, he came from a very high-class family, of brahmanas. There's different gradations of brahmanas. So he came from a very high echelon of Brahman. So Brahminical Brahmins were considered the highest echelon of the social structure, and even so there's sub-echelons as well. So he's coming from a very high echelon in the highest echelon. But not just that, of course, he also personally, regardless of the social strata he was born into, also he himself was in possession of very high qualities of intellect and feeling, of head and heart, very high qualities of head and heart. And Saraswati Thakur knew this, he could see this. So he said, Yad yada charati shreshtas. Whatever, this is saying that a great person has come, this is fortunate, and many people will follow. So he quoted this verse when Srila Sridhar Maharaj joined the Gaudiya Math, 1926. Joined in 26 and... joined in 20... He joined... he met and... He kind of joined in 24 but didn't fully live in the Math till 26. And then took sannyas 1930. So that was quoted by Saraswati Thakur. So it can work both ways. It can work in a mundane sense, that a celebrity can degrade society by displaying behaviors that are, we could say, debauched. If you happen to see some of the behavior of celebrities these days, or the lyrics of their songs, or the antics that they perform in their music videos, you can see it. It's often quite animalistic. It seems to be becoming more and more gross in its expression. And people follow this. People who adore such idols, they imitate this behavior. But conversely, those who set spiritual standards, this verse describes their positive effect as well. So it can work both ways, as in the case of Param Gurudev. Text 26. Yuga Dharma Pravartana Haya Amsahaite Amavina Anye Nare Braja Premadite. My plenary portions can establish the principles of religion for each age. No one but me, however, can bestow the kind of loving service performed by the residents of Braja. He's noting the distinction between the Yuga Avatar and the descent of Swayam Bhagavan. Amsa. Amsa means a plenary portion. Amsa means a division or a slice of something. Like a slice of cake is an amsa of the whole cake. So the Yuga Dharma, the religion for the age, can be established by an amsa, a plenary portion, a division, not the whole thing, but a division of Krishna. Whereas the bhakti, which is actually described here as Braja Prema, which is the divine love of the residents of Braja. Ama vina anye nare Braja Prema dite. This can only be bestowed by me, Swayam Bhagavan, not by a portion of myself. I think we'll finish there. And tomorrow we'll continue. Read from Danvat. Read a little from Devotional Treasure Chest by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. What is the meaning of dedication or sacrifice? Yagya tat karmanon yatra loko yam karma bandhanaha. Work should be done only as a sacrifice. All other work is energizing in the wrong direction. In other words, all other work is creating karma, which will need to be expended at some stage. Guru Maharaj says, Yagyo vai Krishna, aham hi sarva yagyanam bhokta cha prabhur eva cha. Gita 9:24. The Lord, our guardian, says, work must be devoted towards me, to my satisfaction, otherwise it is not yagya. Sacrifice means that it must be for the absolute center and not for any provincial interest, sectarian purpose, or anything else. It must go to the absolute, and then it will be real yagya. Other yagya, devata upasana, demigod worship, will go up and then come down. So devata upasana is saguna, and my upasana is nirguna. Saguna means under the influence of maya, the good and the bad of this world. And nirguna means that of absolute characteristic which has value everywhere. Just as gold is the standard of money, not currency like the dollar, yen or ruble, so rasa is the standard of realization of the absolute. Provincial ideas, sectarianism, or anything like that won't do. Such provincialism will be devata upasana and not worship of himself. The attempts of the little-brained persons will certainly be futile, going up and coming down. Abrahma bhuvanal loka punar avatino juna. Bhagavad Gita 8:16. I am the only enjoyer of everything, and I am friendly to all. When you realize that I am all in all, and that I am a friend to you, at that time, all misgivings will disappear in you. My guardian is the absolute all-caring power. My interest is represented in him. I may not know of my own real interest, but he knows it better, so I don't have to be afraid that the management is with him. Absolute good is an autocrat, and that is the best arrangement. The absolute good must be concentrated there in the autocrat. He must have complete freedom, as then everyone will be benefited because he is all good. So there should be no misgivings, no apprehension, and only then will one's heart be filled with peace. One of the limbs of surrender is to have confidence in the Lord's protection. Full confidence, so there's no misgivings. A misgiving means you have some doubts or concerns. So the abandonment, the jettisoning of misgivings leads naturally to Sharanagati. There is no obstacles or blocks in one's, or you say negative feelings, pratikul, only anukulya, positive, a positive connection with the Lord. And one subtle distinction as well is that the positive connection means that there is no seeing of negativity in the environment, that we see that the environment is being arranged as a perfect prescription. Karma, our environment is part of our karma. So the karma is a perfect prescription, tailor-made for us, and thus so is the environment. So to see it as helpful, not to see it as something fearful, something problematic. So the relationship with the Lord needs to be anukul, one of gratitude. Sometimes we see certain faiths, they're obsessed with, they say they're spiritual, but they're constantly looking out for signs of negativity, constantly being on guard because the devil is lurking. So they're seeing the devil everywhere. That's not anukul. That's focusing on the negative. It's more devil consciousness than Christ consciousness or whatever. So rather than seeing negativity in the environment, we have to see positive. The environment is here to help us. an anukul, optimistic and favorable attitude towards the environment and also towards the Lord is helpful. Utsahan, as Rupa Goswami says, Utsahan Nishchaya Dhairya, to have some optimism, enthusiasm. And with that optimism and enthusiasm comes Nischaya and Dhairyat, determination and conviction, consistency, steadiness. You cannot have those things if you don't have an optimistic sense. If you don't have enthusiasm, how can you be fixed? You have to be enthused about it, and then you can be fixed and focused. All right, Jai Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sri Dhadev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai, Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Hari Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Hari Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Yadhavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopala Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Gopala Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Jai Rupa Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra. Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra. Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhattu Raghunath. Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhattu Raghunath. Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath. Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath. Hey Jai Goshai Kare Charana Bandhan. Jai Goshai Kare Charana Bandhan. Jaha Hoite Vigna Nas Abhista Puran. Hoite Vigna Nas Abhista Puran. Jai Goshai Andramuni Tanradas. Jai Goshai Andramuni Tanradas. Tansavada Padarenu Mora Panchagras. Tansavada Padarenu Mora Panchagras. Tandera Charana Sevi Bhakti Sanibas. Janame Mora Heya Bilas. Janame Mora Heya Bilas. Hey Jai Goshai Jabe Braje Koilobas. Jai Goshai Jabe Braje Koilobas. Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korela Praga. Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korela Praga. Anande Bolo Hare Bhaja Vrindavan. Shri Guru Vaishnav Hare Majayaman. Shri Guru Vaishnav Hare Majayaman. Shri Guru Vaishnav Hare Padma Kodeya. Guru Vaishnav Kodeya. Sarinam Sankirtan Kore Narodhamodas. Sarinam Sankirtan Kore Narodhamodas. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ram Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ram Ramo, Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Sapadikara Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Sundar Radha Giridhara Ji Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sri Dhadev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Rupanuga Guru Varg Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Samaveda Vaishnav Mandala Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat West London Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol.